Most individuals foolishly go about their lives without acknowledging that terrible events could easily befall them. Indeed, sometimes it's only in our self-centered nature to forget that the life we're familiar with could vanish within the blink of an eye, or that our acquaintances, friends, and even family could one day disappear, never to be seen or heard from again. Although an uncomfortable truth, many have regrettably had to face this cold reality of life. Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1945. A merciless fire devastates the Sauter family's home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sauter, as well as 9 of their 10 children, are in the house during the fire. George and Jenny both escape with 4 of their children. However, the other 5 do not make it out. Although at first the children are presumed to have died in the fire, by the time the fire department examines the charred ruins of the home, the remains of the 5 children are nowhere to be found. Indeed, things aren't truly as they seem, and many strange details leading up to the fire only make authorities further question the fate of the 5 children. Jenny awakes at 2:30 a.m. and receives a strange call from an unfamiliar woman. At 1 a.m., Jenny also hears something fall on the roof. 30 minutes later, she smells smoke and discovers a fire in the room that her husband uses for an office. Jenny and George escape with only 4 of their children: Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr. However, although they desperately yell to the other children upstairs, they never receive a response. And sadly, the reason they're unable to reach them themselves is because the stairway is already aflame. George, unable to find the ladder, decides to climb the wall and break open the attic window from the outside, cutting his arm in the process. However, he does not see his children anywhere in the attic. And because they can do nothing, they simply wait for the fire department to arrive as the house tragically burns to the ground. But by the time they arrive later during the morning, firefighters can do very little but search through the hot ash left over from the unpitying blaze. No bones are recovered, leaving many to believe that the fire was hot enough to completely burn the children's bodies. Nevertheless, an employee from a local crematorium explains to them that human remains are left over even after fires burning at temperatures high as 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, nearly twice as hot as what a typical house fire would be. Many speculations exist regarding the 5 missing children. However, to this day, no one is certain what truly happened to them at all. Millions of people fly across the world on airplanes every year, and although chances are unlikely that you'll find yourself aboard a plane that could seemingly disappear from the face of the earth, events like this have happened in the past. Most notably, perhaps, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. March 8, 2014 was the last day the aircraft made voice contact with the flight traffic control. 227 passengers were on board at the time, and the plane was flying over the South China Sea. It wasn't long before the airplane disappeared from their radars. Luckily, it still showed up on military radars, however, this was short-lived. The aircraft continued westward and flew over the Malay Peninsula, but disappeared from all military radars after it began flying over the Andaman Sea. A multinational search shortly thereafter commenced. This extensive search lasted from October of 2014 to January of 2017. Unfortunately, only a few pieces of debris were discovered off the coast of Africa and on Indian Ocean islands. The rest of the aircraft has yet to be discovered. Despite many theories existing, such as a premeditated suicide by one of the pilots, nothing has been proven. As of January 2018, a private company has resumed the search. Some are hopeful, but others believe the chance to truly know the fate of the missing airliner and all its occupants has already slipped away. The Flann Isles lighthouse was constructed between the years of 1895 and 1899 off the west coast of Scotland. In addition to this, a cable-hauled railway was also constructed to transport keepers and barrels of fuel up to the lighthouse. However, in the year 1900, sailors began to notice that something was rather off. On December 15, 1900, a streamer named Arctur was on a passage from Philadelphia to Leith. The weather conditions were exceedingly poor, yet the lighthouse was not operating during this time. This was noted in the ship's log, and shortly after the Arctur arrived in Leith, this note was passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board. A relief vessel was soon planned to leave on December 20th, but due to rough weather, the vessel didn't reach the island until December 26th. The lighthouse was supposed to be operated by 3 men: Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur, as well as an additional rotating 4th man who spent time on shore. As the crew began to investigate the island, they found that the flag was missing from the flagstaff. In addition to this, not a single provision box had been left on the dock, as they were usually supposed to be. But even more disconcertingly, none of the lighthouse keepers stood there to welcome them. As their search continued, they found the beds were unmade, the clocks had stopped working, and many of the oil lamps had been refilled. But there were no signs of the keepers. They had seemingly just disappeared. A man named Joseph Moore and 3 other men decided to stay and operate the lighthouse again. In a chilling telegram, Moore states the following: "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall, and the Occasional, have disappeared from the island. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago." Even after searching, the bodies of the missing men were never found. There are many theories regarding their disappearance, from freak waves and weather to paranormal activity. But ultimately, we will very likely never truly know what happened to the poor lighthouse keepers. It's a tragedy when fateful events befall those who have their entire lives ahead of them. Brian Schaeffer is a prime example of such undeserved misfortunes. Brian Schaeffer was a medical student at The Ohio State University. During the beginning of his spring break on the night of March 31st, 2006, he went out to celebrate with some friends. But puzzlingly, a security camera caught footage of him talking to 2 women outside a bar at around 2 a.m. After re-entering the bar, he was never seen or heard from again. Brian began bar hopping with his friend William Florence once they both met at the Ugly Tuna Saloona. According to Florence, they both had 1 shot of hard liquor at each stop. Eventually, they met with Meredith Reed, one of William Florence's friends. She gave the 2 a ride back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona to have one last drink. However, sometime while they were there, they lost contact with Brian. They left at 2 a.m., and when they realized that Brian was not among the leaving crowd, they assumed he had returned to his apartment for the evening. But when family and friends tried to call him later on, he didn't answer his phone. Then, on Monday morning, when he missed his flight to Miami that he was supposed to attend with his girlfriend and fellow medical student Alexis Wagoner, he was finally reported missing. A massive police search soon began, starting at the Ugly Tuna Saloona. They extensively searched the city, but Brian has never turned up. The most prevalent theory explaining Brian's disappearance is that he was a victim in the smiley face serial murders. However, nothing is certain, and to this day, his whereabouts or death remain a mystery. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Brian Schaeffer, you're urged to contact the Columbus Police Department at 877-645-8477 right away. On December 7, 1958, the Martin family went to the Columbia River Gorge in Portland, Oregon, to gather greenery for Christmas decorations. That day, the family would go missing. Among the missing were 54-year-old Kenneth Martin, 48-year-old Barbara Martin, as well as their 3 daughters, 14-year-old Barbie, 13-year-old Susan, and 11-year-old Virginia. It wasn't until 7 months later that the bodies of Virginia and Susan were discovered downstream, nearly 30 miles apart from each other. Authorities then suspected that their vehicle had crashed into the river. But the case only became even more complex when a stolen handgun was discovered, as well as the arrest of 2 ex-convicts in the vicinity of the family's disappearance. Unfortunately, investigators were never able to fully determine if these 2 incidents were in any way connected. On December 9th, the family was officially reported missing, as Kenneth failed to report for his job. Their residence was subsequently investigated by authorities for signs of foul play. However, the house was entirely undisturbed. The vehicles and bodies of Kenneth, Barbara, and Barbie Martin have remained undiscovered to this day. Although most suspect foul play, it's not likely that we will ever know what really happened to the Martin family that one fateful day. If you have any information regarding the Martin family, please contact the Oregon State Police at 503-378-3720. Thank you for watching. Be sure to follow my Facebook fan page, and I'll see you next time.